High on a hilltop, facing the spectacular front range of the Rocky Mountains, is the Stanley Hotel, its white clapboard building complemented by the high country winter landscape. Oddly enough, it was an Englishman, the 4th Earl of Dunraven, who first owned the land on which the Stanley now sits, like a regal overseer of Estes Park, Colorado. A spirit of adventure brought Lord Dunraven to the 19th century wilderness of the Colorado Territory, and he purchased a large portion of it for a private hunting preserve. Locals chafed at his hunting parties riding to hounds in their red coats and English saddles. Legal battles and local resentment eventually ran him out, and he returned to England in 1884. He'd had the right idea, that Estes Park was a perfect vacation destination, but it would take later developers to realize it should be enjoyed by everyone, not just British aristocracy. One of those visionaries was Freeland O. Stanley, who, along with his identical twin brother Francis, was born in 1849 in Kingfield, Maine. Throughout their lives, they worked together on several successful business ventures, including the development of the Stanley steamer automobile. In 1903, at age 54, his health failing, F.O. Stanley and his wife Flora came to Colorado. The bracing mountain air, sunny days, and lots of rest did their work well. In a burst of enthusiasm for sharing their discovery with others, the Stanleys selected the site for a great resort hotel and bought the surrounding land, which had once been the hunting domain of Lord Dunraven. In 1909, the sprawling yellow and red New England towered Stanley Hotel, with its classic Greek columns, opened for business. It boasted Colorado's first electric kitchen, an elegant dining room with unsurpassed mountain views, and a lovely dark-paneled billiard room. In the bright, sunny music room was a Steinway grand piano, hauled up from the Lyons Colorado Railroad depot by ox cart for the grand opening. The main hotel was built as a summer resort, but just to the south was the Manor House, with its central heating system for year-round use, a smaller version of the main hotel. The two buildings came to be known as the Big Stanley and the Little Stanley. A third building, the casino, now called Stanley Hall, accommodated dancing, bowling, and a variety of entertaining events. Early conventioneers were brought from Loveland or Lyons by sturdy 12-passenger Stanley steamers called trail wagons. The history of the hotel and the steam-powered cars is intertwined and is honored by the designation of the property as an historic district, as much for the importance of the Stanley steamers as the hotel itself. The steam-powered automobiles were easy to drive. Once sufficient steam was produced, drivers simply opened the throttle and the car moved forward. No clutch and no gears to be shifted. A kerosene fire heated the water. The original tiller soon became a steering wheel. The boiler and steam engine, which had been under the driver's seat, were later installed under the hood, resulting in the famous coffin look of the car. Ironically, the development of the mountain-climbing Stanley steamer resulted in the demise of the once fashionable summer or month-long vacation. It soon became very easy to come and go for shorter stays. The Stanley Hotel stands out perhaps in all of the Front Range Rockies as an architectural anomaly. Most resorts are either rustic, known as Rocky Mountain stick, or the Swiss-inspired chalet styles. Kurt Buchholz is executive director of the Rocky Mountain Nature Association.
And of course the Stanley was the classiest resort in the Rocky Mountains at that point. And I think the Stanley also then spawned quite a number of other smaller resorts, not only here in Estes Park, but actually on both sides of the mountains here, because people, when they're staying that long, they can really get out and explore the territory. And so hiking and horse riding, those kinds of outdoor activities were really what made the Stanley a fashionable resort and one that would have the kind of interest to allow people to explore the Rocky Mountains.
Winter's charm in the Rockies can be viewed from the vantage of the Stanley Hotel's fan-lighted front windows, which look to the west. Directly across the valley is Long's Peak in Rocky Mountain National Park. It is the northernmost of Colorado's 54 peaks over 14,000 feet. Glaciers carved its distinctive four-sided summit, leaving an easily recognized landmark with its celebrated notch. Summit registers have been kept since 1915, and the records show well over 100,000 climbers have reached the top. The Stanley is a natural stopping place for those wishing to roam this high country wonderland. Jim Thompson is the park superintendent. He is sometimes referred to as God because of his spectacular domain.
Well, this park was established, of course, in 1915, before there was a National Park Service. It was about the 10th national park, and it was one of a handful that were established prior to the establishment of the National Park Service. If you look at who visits this park, about half of the people are from Colorado. And the other half, of course, from across the country, but the majority comes from the Midwest and from Texas and Oklahoma. And for those people, the opportunity to go to high altitudes, cool weather in the middle of the summer, and to see snow in the middle of the summer, the permanent snowbanks that are up there at 11,000, 12,000 feet, is a unique experience. The wildlife, the climate, the wildflowers of the tundra, all of those things are an attraction that they just can't experience to the same degree elsewhere.
The Stanley, like so many venerable buildings down through history, has its share of ghost stories. Ever since Stephen King wrote The Shining, tales have proliferated. King got his initial inspiration for the book at the Stanley. The hotel's former general manager, Harry Graham, chose a proper setting to tell about the experience of two employees working late one night.
She came out in the lobby, and they heard music coming from this room. And the only light on in the room was the light on this alcove. And, of course, the piano is here, and you probably all know about the Steinway, which was a gift from Stanley to his wife when the hotel opened. So they walked up, and they realized that the music was indeed coming from the piano. And from just outside the music room, looking in, they could see the keys on the piano moving. And, of course, it's not a player piano, and there was nobody in here. And as soon as they stepped over the threshold into the room, the music stopped.
The enormous responsibility for restoring, maintaining, and refurbishing an historic hotel, especially one the size of the Stanley, is not a job for a dilettante or amateur. Marketing manager Patricia Maher remembers what it looked like when she first arrived.
I began my work at the Stanley in January of 1982. The hotel was closed down. There were hundreds of breaks in the pipes, no plumbing. Thieves had stolen a lot of the antique furniture. Icicles had formed on the inner walls of the hotel. I never truly believed when the owner said that we would be open by May, but indeed we were. A typical guest of the Stanley can be anyone from a group, National Leadership on Aging, U.S. West, to people celebrating their 50th, 60th anniversary. They were married here. They've come back here. We've had people come back who were bellmen in 1912 and are now millionaires on Wall Street. And just the average person who is a little sick of the ordinary.
Present owners of the Stanley are Frank and Judith Normali. They are passionately dedicated to preserving the grand old lady, as the hotel is sometimes called.
Of course, I didn't know it didn't have heat, and I didn't know about 1,200 windows broken or cracked, and I didn't know a lot of things. This is a very, very special property. It's not just a historic property. This is a very, very special historic property. So I guess that in our ownership of the Stanley Hotel, I think that the Stanley Hotel far more dignifies us than we dignify it, although people say it's a mutual type of thing.
New fallen snow gives the elegant lobby a bright, cheery glow. The focal point is the lovely, inviting staircase with its curved balustrades and gleaming white woodwork. One cannot help thinking of the early guest who in 1912 called the hotel a veritable palace in the wild. Over one of the fireplaces is a print from a Bierstadt painting, a scene that in real life is just a short distance from the hotel. Old photographs in the lobby are reminders that this historic charmer began with elegance and comfort. Freeland O. Stanley remains somewhat of an enigma in history. There are not many photographs of this man who helped to revolutionize photographic processes, but one is evidence that he did not take himself too seriously. King Stanley is sitting on a tree-stump throne, a lard bucket crown on his head, and a broom-handle scepter in his hand. Along with naturalist Enos Mills, shown here on the left, Stanley enthusiastically supported the establishment of Rocky Mountain National Park and assisted in the reintroduction of wildlife, which had been depleted by overhunting. F.O. Stanley died at 91 in 1940 in Newton, Massachusetts, his longtime winter home, but he left behind the luxurious resort he had created in the rugged beauty of its natural setting. It is the site of an annual Memorial Day gathering of Stanley steamers and other old-timers which arrive via the old route up through the canyons to celebrate triumphs of other times. The Stanley is a gracious reminder not only of enduring grandeur, but also of the need we all have to taste the beauty of nature and one man's effort to allow us to do so in comfortable wonder.